Good. Thank you very much, Vanessa. Um, Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by calling this meeting to order. It is Wednesday, June the 4th, 2025, and the time is 6:01 p.m. I'd like to welcome you all to our public information meeting. This evening's meeting is for file 2515. That's PID 4505-3220 on King Street in Windsor regarding a development agreement. Before we begin, I'd like to make just a couple of announcements. I'd like to begin with West Hants Regional Municipality acknowledges that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, and that this land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship first signed in 1726. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes that we are all treaty people and have responsibilities to this land and to each other. West Hants Regional Municipality recognizes African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose history, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki, known as Nova Scotia, for over 400 years. We acknowledge the historic and ongoing racism against these communities and are committed to mending our relationship by listening, learning, and recognizing our wrongs. Council and I, as chair, are committed to ensuring this meeting and its participants conduct ourselves in a respectful and professional manner, as outlined in the municipality's Municipal Code of Conduct. Meeting presenters, staff, and the public are expected to always conduct themselves in an equally respectful manner while the meeting is being conducted. I thank you all in advance for your commitment to these important meeting principles. The West Hants Public Participation Program, established under Section 204 of the Municipal Government Act, requires a public information meeting for development agreements and proposed amendments to planning documents. This meeting is hosted by planning and development staff and provides members of the public with an opportunity to bring up any concerns and ask the applicant and planning staff questions regarding the proposal. As a reminder to everybody, this meeting is streamed live on YouTube, and audience members are asked not to record the meeting on their personal devices. If we need to leave the building due to a fire or other emergency, exits are found to the right towards the back of the room and at the back on the left-hand side. The muster location is in the staff parking lot in this direction that I'm pointing. I will offer to be the last person out, and I will check to make sure the washrooms are empty and everybody has left before me. With those few, longer than I thought, but brief announcements made, I would like to say that we'll begin with an overview of the proposal and the process, and we'll now ask that Planner William Hong take over the meeting. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Chair, Councillor, and good evening, everyone, and also people joining us online. My name is Will Hong, and I'm the planner with the municipality, and who is handling this particular planning application. I will begin with a presentation to go over our planning process and how public can share their input with us. And then the applicant from Upland Consulting will present as well, and to do a more detailed presentation for their proposal. And then we will open the floor to the members of public for comment and question period and have a conversation with anyone who wants to speak tonight. I have my contact contacts here, and I also got my business cards on the table there. And I will also highlight my contact information at the end of my presentation again. So again, tonight's meeting is about a development agreement application on King Street in Windsor. So this application came in a little while ago on April 3rd this year from Upland Planning and Design Studio on behalf of the Pinnacle Construction Limited. And the application is for a development agreement to permit a multiple unit residential building with 72 units on the vacant property. And this is a map of the current property boundary highlighted in yellow. The property is currently sitting vacant with approximately 1.67 acre in size. The surrounding properties include a mixed forms of housing like single unit dwellings and existing apartment buildings across the street, as well as institutional use for the Dykeland long-term care facility in the back of the property. So this slide presents the generalized future land use map from the Windsor Municipal Planning Strategy. It shows that the subject property, along with the most surrounding properties, is designated as residential. While the current zoning may differ, our planning documents assign a long-term designation to all lands. In this case, it's signed as the residential designation. And this image shows the current zoning for the lot, and which indicates the current zoning is general commercial, and it generally allows a variety of commercial uses. But again, which include art studios, bank, and financial institutions, country inns, and also residential uses and restaurants. So the site plan shows the proposal building and how it might sit on the lot. Again, this is just a initial phase design, but gives a sense of what it could look like. The building intends to be sitting facing the King Street, and there will be surface parking of 72 parking spaces, and landscaping is intended to help buffer the building from the surrounding residential uses. So also landscaping can be found along the edges as well. And this picture was taken this afternoon and shows the subject lot as viewed from King Street. You can find the existing driveway on the right hand, and you can see the land slopes upward toward the rear of the property. And here is another picture shows the rear of the property. And here are some photos of the surrounding neighborhood, which again features a mix of low to medium density housing, along with some commercial uses such as the Clockmakers Inn, and also you can find an auto parts shop located across the street. So move into the policy part, and this is really what enables this application to occur. The Windsor Municipal Planning Strategy is the overarching planning document we look at for this planning application. And specifically, policy 5.4.6 provides council with the ability to consider multiple unit residential dwellings of 3 units or more in the residential designation by development agreement. And subject to the following criteria. First, we will look at if the proposal is generally consistent with the high density zone standards, and if the proposal is compatible in scale with the surrounding uses, such as traffic generation, density, building height, and also we look at fencing, landscaping consideration, if there's adequate parking and open space, and if the development abuts a collector or arterial road, if it more than 12 units. And we will also look at the criteria in policy 16.3.1. So this slide shows the criteria that I just mentioned. This is just the general criteria in every development agreement application we look at, which points us to the adequacy of sewer and water services, the adequacy of school and fire protection services, road networks, and if there's any financial capacity of the municipality to absorb any costs relating to the development. And also we look at if the development is capable of being serviced, and to look at the suitability of automotive and pedestrian traffic, and also to look at if there's any kind of hazard like steep slopes and water course on the lot, and so on and so forth. So the planning process just highlighted in this slide. Again, as you can see from the chart, we are at the very first step tonight to hold a public information meeting and to hear public input on this proposal. So this is really the beginning of our planning process, which means no decision will be made tonight. And moving on, we will do a staff review and integrate all the policy analysis and the policy public input into a staff report that goes to the planning and advisory committee for their review and recommendation, which is anticipated to happen in July. Then it will go through the council approval process. If the application was approved by council, then the notice of approval will be placed in paper, which will outline 14-day appeal period to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board. So with that, I will just highlight that comments will be recorded at this meeting. And if you have any questions or comments after the meeting, you are more than welcome to reach me through email or by telephone. We just request those be submitted before noon on June 18th, which is 2 weeks from today. I will leave this slide on for a moment if anyone wants to jot down. Once again, I can be reached through phone at 902-798-8391, extension 110, or by email at whong@westhants.ca, or if you prefer mail, there's also a Dropbox at our regional office at 76 Morrison Drive in Windsor. And with that, thank you everyone for listening and attention. And now I will pass it over to you, Chair, with the understanding that the applicant is also wishes to present tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hong, for a detailed and informative presentation as part of this meeting. I will now turn this over to the two gentlemen from Upland Planning and Design. And I would just ask, as you begin, if you would just introduce yourselves and then take it away. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Chair. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight. We're here from Upland Planning and Design Studio. We're here on behalf of our client, Pinnacle Construction, who is the developer on this project. My name is Arnav Garg. I'm a planner, and I'm joined by my colleague Ian Watson, who's a senior planner at Upland. All right. The property, as the planner already mentioned, is located on King Street. It doesn't currently have a civic number, but it's about 1.67 acres. And I will point out that, as Will mentioned, the grade on the site is quite steep. So from front to back, it does rise quite a bit, actually by almost about 16 feet. And that's relevant to sort of how the building is designed, which I'll talk about in a bit. Other than that, located close to the intersection of King Street and Chester Road, as mentioned already, the neighborhood does have quite a few different uses, including different residential densities, as well as commercial uses, the auto parts shop, as well as the Dykeland Lodge right behind the property. So just want to provide some background on this development. This property is currently owned by the province and has been made available for development through the Provincial Land for Housing program, in which the province is entering into agreements with developers on various properties all across the province to develop them for residential use with the idea that this would provide affordable housing. And so there's quite a lot of information on the website about this program on the province's website. I've included a link there for anyone that would like to look at all of the details. There's also a QR code if anyone wants to scan through. Or you can just Google Land for Housing Program and it will come up. But specifically for this development, the agreement with the province is that 25% of units will be offered as affordable housing. That's based on certain definitions that the province uses and that they would have agreed to with our client, the developer. But those rents will be offered for a 25-year period. So yeah, as already mentioned, the property falls under the Town of Windsor planning documents, and although it is currently zoned as general commercial, the future land use designation is residential, and that's what enables this development agreement. And that happens under policy 5.4.6, as already mentioned, where a residential development of 3 or more units can be considered on any property in the residential designation, as long as it meets certain criteria as already outlined. Primarily, the idea is that the building would be consistent with the already existing high-density residential zone, or the R4 zone. And I'll touch a little bit on how the proposal complies with those requirements. So the proposal is for a multi-unit building containing 72 units. The height of the building we're saying is 4.5 stories. That might be a little odd, but it's again because of how steep the grade on the site is. So you can see there in that image, the grade rises quite significantly. And if you measure from sort of the average of the grade, which is what's typically done, it comes out to about 4.5 stories. The top story in that building is set back from the street a little bit, and it's within a mansard roof. So that really helps to, kind of lower the impact of height, as well as kind of matches a little bit of the historic character in Windsor, specifically the Clockmaker's Inn, which is just 2 doors down, I believe, also has a mansard roof. And the tower of that inn also rises to about a similar height as this building. And then additionally in that lower story, which when you view it from the front of the property, you can see it there in that image, but it really is a basement level. And those units, the 8 units in the front of the building, are designed as townhouse style, sort of with their own entrances from the street. So you would be able to walk into those units directly from the street. There's a small set of stairs that leads down into each unit. The development will also include quite a bit of recreational space. So there is some space provided within the building, also on the lowest story, for amenities, perhaps a gym or something like that. And then there is quite a significant amount of outdoor space as well. So you can see there, it's about 15,300 square feet. There is outdoor parking provided with this development, with 72 parking stalls, so 1 parking stall for each unit. And those parking lots are located at the sides and the rear of the building. You'll be able to see it again in the site plan that was shown earlier, but the proposal does include quite a bit of landscaping to help screen the parking lot from the street so that it wouldn't have, quite as much of a visual impact. And we do also propose to provide some bike parking within the building. So something that we wanted to do, again, to help this development fit into the town a little bit more, was to take cues from the Town of Windsor Architectural Design Manual. This design manual actually only applies to a specific area, mostly around downtown Windsor. It isn't required to be applied to this development, but we took a look at it to take some of the strategies that it suggests into this building. So that includes the cladding that will be used, the guardrails, as well as the styles and the proportions of the windows in this building to help it fit into the Windsor context a little bit more. And I'll also mention that the colors that will be used in the building will also take cues from that design manual. So this is the site plan that was shown earlier. I apologize if that's a little hard to see. But in the red outline there, that shows the minimum setback requirements for that R4 zone that, again, this, generally the development agreement policy suggests that this development comply with. And you can see the building there occupies quite a small portion of this lot. Actually, it's about 21% lot coverage on this lot, and it falls within all of those setback requirements. And this is just kind of repeating what I just said about it, generally meeting those setback requirements, especially on the rear and side yard. The front yard, the R4 zone typically has a minimum of 35 feet, but there is also a policy that allows any development to use the average setback of neighboring properties. And so that's sort of the cue that's been taken for this proposal, and it's 27.7 feet off of the street. And then again, a little bit more about the height there. Generally, it's 3 stories, but given that one of the stories is, again, sort of a basement level, that's only visible really because of the grade of the site. And then the topmost story is within the mansard roof. We are suggesting that the municipality, maybe consider the height in this building as well. And that's really all I had to say. I guess I'll hand it back to the chair and we can continue the meeting.
Thank you very much, Arnav and Ian, for being here to give us that presentation as well. We really appreciate it. Moving on to the next section of this evening's agenda, we'll now look to take questions or comments, and I'll start with questions or comments from the public. And I'm going to, this evening, if I could, I'm just going to do a check online because we have some people there and it becomes easy to lose sight of them. If there's anyone online at present, do you know, Vanessa, No hands? Okay. Is that Connor that has a hand up? Okay, so I don't have that screen over here. So if I'm going to rely on you to, if you would. So we have Krista up there with a hand up. Great. Krista, if you wish to speak, we'll recognize you at the present time. I don't know if you can hear me, Krista, but maybe you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Are we able to check with her in some fashion?
Can you hear me now?
We're just checking our volume here, Krista, because we're not hearing you. It appears like you're talking with us, but
I'm trying.
Can you hear me, Jim?
perhaps what I'll do, Vanessa, I'll take a question from the room, and then if you're able to determine, and it's all right if we end up hearing Krista's voice having to interject while we're taking the local public, that's okay. So I'm going to take the gentleman who's signaled with, if you can come up to the microphone at the chair here, and if you can introduce yourself, and you can turn the mic on by pushing the button in front. There you go.
Richard Poole, resident of King Street. Just wondering if the town or yourself have conducted a traffic study of the area at all since you put the proposal in.
We have not conducted a traffic study yet. That would be something that the municipality could request us to do, and we'd look into that for sure.
Okay, because I'm sure members of the council know King Street, and especially King Street in Chester, is an extremely busy area. I live on King Street. The traffic there is nonstop from morning to evening. So you can well imagine what 72 more units or vehicles would do to that area. It's extremely busy.
Thank you.
Not only that, noise pollution as well to all the residents that have lived there for years. As you can tell, it's a well-established area. A lot of families there. I don't think many people are opposed to something going there, but some thought really has to be put into how many units actually go there. And like I said, the traffic, if you do a study, you'll see how many cars and trucks are up there on a regular basis. And at times, because of the volume, cars trying to get in and out of Chester Road is next to impossible. So again, right there, you're going to be adding a lot more traffic volume to it. And again, the noise, the pollution. And that, I mean, I'm just scratching the surface. I'm not going to stay here all night because I'm sure there's other questions as well. And I will be sending more information to you as well via email. But that was my number one thing to start off with, is a traffic study. And if you do one, will that be made available then to everyone to see, or?
If I might say, Will, do you want to speak to the fact that we have a traffic authority that actually is solicited for comment during the process? I think that's the best way to have that question directed.
Yeah, through you, Chair, to the member of the public, that is correct. So, as I mentioned in my presentation, this is really the beginning of a planning process, and just there are a list of criteria in our policy, and I believe one of which speaks to the traffic generation, the compatibility of the traffic generation. So that is when as planners, we seek advice from the traffic authority. And if they do see the traffic being an issue in this area, then the municipality can definitely request the developer to provide a traffic study.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Does that help? Great. Thank you, Richard, for coming forward with your question. I'll then check with the local room here still. Sir, I'm going to get the color wrong, okay? So it's either pink or red. It's a shortcoming I have that. If you would just introduce yourself and then prepare.
Yeah, my name's Ken Rippey, and I live on 1416 King Street, which is down closer to the Chester Road and on the opposite side of the street. My big concern, question, and needs to be answered is in 16.3.1. In the very top one, I believe it's water and sewer. The water's fine, but there definitely needs to be an engineered study done on the sewage. So we get heavy rains or whatever, and I can represent 4 or 5 people from that side of the street. It comes out of a storm drain on this side and ends up in my backyard, sewage, okay? It needs to be, that infrastructure needs to be sorted before we had 72 more people dumping on us. Anyway, that needs to be looked into.
Thank you, Ken. And I
don't know if they're going to do anything prior to this, but it needs to be done prior to this development.
Thank you, Ken. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow the planner, if he wishes to speak to, again, his criteria. Is it 16.3.1? Will, if you can speak to that.
Yeah, through you, Chair, to the member of the public, I do appreciate the comment. You are right. 16.3.1 is the general criteria for any development application. So as planner, we have to look at the adequacy of sewer and the water services, which I will definitely seek advice to the subject matter expert on this issue. So I can assure you that you can find their opinions on in my future staff report for sure.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ken, for coming forward. And so now we'll again, okay, so I'm going to take a chance here and see if we can get Miss Beeler in, okay? Krista, I see your hand this time, so that might be a good sign. And now I hear your voice, so we've got you live.
Hooray.
You're with us. Thank you for joining us. If you would just state your name, I think maybe who you're representing, if you're,
Sure.
assuming you're with the lodge and.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. It's Krista Beeler, and I'm the CEO of Dykeland Lodge, which is a long-term care facility that has 111 residents. And we also service 5 tenants in the lower level of the building as well. So I have a couple of questions, some that are pretty standard. One is, I assume that there will be a construction infection control plan that we would be able to hopefully either review or have some sort of meeting with folks from Pinnacle, just to ensure that if we are still in our facility before moving to our new facility, that it's not going to impact our air handling. We have older infrastructure, as I'm sure everyone knows, which is why we're getting a new building. And I would assume that the silt screens would be up as well as part of that construction package to make sure that the dust is down. I have the same concerns in and around traffic and parking and the older infrastructure in that area, and the ability for that older infrastructure to be able to handle 72 units. So I have those same questions, but my main concern is about the health and safety of the residents and how long might the build take. Obviously, the development process is going to take some time, and getting out your RFPs and bids and all of that. But I would like to know what you're looking at as a timeline, ballpark. We ourselves are looking to be moving from the site that we're at in 2027. But the building itself, what happens to the older building, as there are still some good bones there, is still up in the air. Whether that will go and become mixed housing, or it be used for transitional care, or it's sold to another developer. We're unsure of that at this point, but I do think that some consideration in and around that should be taken. So those are my questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Krista. I'm going to look to you first, Will, on this for any considerations that she's raising as part of this process as the first stage.
Through you, Chair, yes, this is a beginning of the process, and I think there's a lot of detailed questions, so I will probably direct the questions to the consulting side to see if they have any answers for that.
Sorry. Thank you, Will. So over to you, Arnav. And I realize we're at the public information stage, so there may be aspects of this that you aren't able to address yet, but if you can talk to what you can and then advise what may be coming down the road.
Yeah, thank you. As Krista acknowledged, it is very early in the process, and we still have to go through this entire development agreement process, and only after that would it, move to tendering and things like that. So it would be quite hard to say at this stage what a timeline would look like. I understand your concerns, and I guess I would say that we'll try our best to make sure that you have the information you need as it becomes available.
Thank
Thank
you.
Arnav.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arnav. Is that good with you for now, Krista? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, like I said, my main concern is the safety of the residents in the building, and I have to put that out there, where we are in charge of them and we still own that property, and what's going to happen to the older property when we move the residents to the new property is still up in the air at this point. So just that consideration piece we really need to look at, and I want it put out there now that there would be pieces of the building once we're gone that may change, and there may be pieces of the building that may stay, which may impact what types of things we need to do to protect people who move into that building, taking us out of the picture.
Great. Thank you very much, Krista. Greatly appreciate you bringing those forward, especially at this early stage. It kind of gets it on the radar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else online with a hand up? I only see the one from Miss Beeler. I'll have you take your hand down if you can, Krista. Just you can certainly put it up again later if you wish.
Through you, Chair, there's a few questions in the chat box. So just let me know if you want me to relay those, or
I'm going to finish with the public in the room
Okay.
first, and just so we try and stay on a straight line here as best possible. So now back to the folks in the room. Gentlemen in the back of the row, just raise your hand if you want to come forward. And as with the others, if you can just give us your name and,
Peter Murray,
hey, Peter.
and I'm chairman of the board at Dykeland Lodge. And as Krista reiterated too, we have some concerns. And I guess one of my first questions, is this a specific seniors building?
Through you, Arnav, if you wish.
Yep. Thank you. It's not dedicated for seniors at this time. It does have the 25% affordable housing for low to moderate income, but that's the only
Okay.
designation.
Okay, because one of the things that Krista didn't touch on, but I will, and that's noise. And I see from the map that we're quite close from that building to our resident rooms on the end of that wing. And of course, that is a concern because the residents are first and foremost, and noise and so on, even after the building's completed, if it's not seniors, if it's family use dwellings, then that's going to create more noise. And we're still not quite sure in regards to what that building is going to become. And there's still some things in the air in regards to that. So, and the other thing, the province of Nova Scotia does not own Dykeland Lodge building. It was initially built by 4 municipalities. And that was Windsor, Hansport, East Hants, and West Hants, but they've all been signed, and Dykeland Lodge owns that building. So when we are making suggestions and so on, that's coming from, I've been on the board for 33 years, so it's coming from a lot of board members that are uniquely interested in Dykeland and the residents, most importantly. So the turnaround time, I guess, was stated that you're not sure is yet. No.
Go ahead, Arnav.
That's correct. I would say it's just too early in the process. It's a very preliminary proposal, so I couldn't speak to that right now. But like I said, we'd be happy to stay in touch and make sure that all of that information is available through the municipality as soon as it's available.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Is that good for you now, Peter?
It will. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. And I'll just reiterate to everybody that this is very much the very first step in the process. I wouldn't even begin to project or guess what the timeline looks like with the developer, but some public information meetings start, and then there's a long period of time before developers work their way through a development agreement, finalizing their plans and so on. So that's the reason that I think they're giving the answer that it's just not set in stone yet, because we're just at this first stage. Your input to come in for that to get reviewed and then work its way through the process. So I hope that's acceptable to Arnav. Thanks. Please, I think it's Richard. If you want to come forward again to the. It's so that the public can hear it. And we can catch up in a minute.
I understand, yeah, information. So I have like a gauntlet of questions on behalf of myself and other neighbors.
Mhm.
Are they going to be all directed to yourself? Should they also go to council members, or where do you want all those directed? So I'm not, hitting people at.
You should be directing to the planning department. All questions, and in this case, it can go to Will Hong, and Will put his email address up again.
I do have that.
And there's also a general planning email address, which will all get redirected to Will and be reviewed by the planning staff collectively as a team. And that's the best way to direct your answers, more so than council. Councillors ultimately end up making the decision based on policy and the criteria that the planning staff work their way through, but they're the ones to answer your questions, to give you the specific details that you'll be looking for.
Okay, that's good for answering the questions, but as far as the detailed list of concerns, would council also look at that and take that into consideration as well?
Everything that's submitted to planning will ultimately be put through to council for council's review when we get the file. But at the front end, this early in the stage, it's planning are really always the ones to send your documents through and your concerns and so forth, because they'll aggregate them, put them together, put together a summary, and then that all comes through together. If you can imagine, if you were to send some through to me and I fail to put them over to planning, and then they don't get considered. So that's why everything in through that central funnel is the right thing to do, to make sure that everything is heard and everybody sees the same information.
Perfect. You must be
Okay.
a busy boy. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for raising the question. It's a good one. Please, sir, come forward in the front row. Same thing, if you would introduce yourself and then.
My name is Justin Haynes. I'm a resident of King Street. And just for full transparency, I am a provincial government employee as well. Just regarding the adjacent helicopter flight path, has there been any analysis done on that yet, and specifically if any cranes are going up?
I'm gonna. I think based on the stage that these folks are in the process, I don't want to answer for you, so I'm going to defer over to Arnav. But I suspect it's going to be a similar.
Thank you. Yes. I don't think that's been done yet. I imagine when it would go to construction, that would definitely be, looked at. And I'm guessing there are quite stringent regulations around that. And those would be dealt with at the time. But again, it's quite early in the process for us to be planning for that just yet.
Mm-hmm. Just regarding general kind of traffic, I do share the same concerns around the traffic coming onto King Street from Highway 14, as well as going onto Highway 14 from King Street. It looks like both those driveways are fairly close to that intersection. Is there anticipated to be any kind of lane closures on King Street because of the construction?
I think that would have to be a similar answer as well. Given that there's not really a clear timeline on that at this point, and the development process, the development agreement process could lead to changes or maybe not. It really just depends on what we end up with. And there's no way to know exactly when or how that'll look at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, Arnav.
And just my last, it's more so a comment. I am a member on the CSA group technical committee for the T100 ICT infrastructure for buildings. This would be a great building to embrace that newly published code. It is referenced as a code. It isn't a code by municipal or provincial legislation, but it talks around things around cybersecurity, entrance facilities, that types of things, given the modern cyber connectivity of air handling units and everything.
Thank you very much. I didn't quite catch your first name. It was
Justin Haynes.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for your questions. I'll appreciate it. I'm just going to check first if we have anybody else in the room wanting to come forward. Please, ma'am, come forward. And Krista, I'll come back to you as soon as.
Hello, I'm Teresa Newcomb, resident of Windsor. My main concern about the proposal is that a lot of green space will be lost. And maybe these are questions that are really not appropriate to address even to this council, because if this is provincial government land and there's a provincial government program trying to, get more apartments built, more housing. But then how we actually do that is, I guess, the responsibility of the municipality. The municipality decides what you can and cannot do in this area. But is there at a provincial level or at this municipal level criteria, and maybe I missed it, I apologize, but is there criteria regarding protecting green space? Is that something that you had to consider when you were doing your design, or something that you would have to consider, Will, to?
Tell you what, Teresa, I'm going to direct that question to Will.
Okay.
And he can speak to it perhaps in the context of setbacks that are required within the property, which is the regulatory aspect of what you can occupy for land coverage. So Will, are you able to speak generally to that at this point? I think I heard 20% earlier from one of the two of you, and I'll let you folks take that.
Thank you, Chair. So through Chair to the member of the public. So there's there's no criteria like specifically speaks to like preserving the green space, but we do have criteria in our planning policy. Specifically, this one is the criteria that to be generally consistent with the high density residential zone standard. So there will be, again, setbacks requirements. So so setbacks requirements as well as the, I'm not sure the lot coverage requirement though, but another criterion is the provision of landscaping as part of the residential development to minimize the effect on the adjacent land uses. So that is to prevent this whole to prevent any like obnoxious from happening through the landscaping requirements. So again, this is will be further down the road to these to get opinion from the subject matter expert. So hopefully that answers your question.
Sorry, to get an opinion from what expert?
The subject matter expert. So in this case, it will be direct to our development officer because they are the administrator of our land use bylaw. So they are more familiarized with the development standards and landscaping requirements and also like recreational spaces requirement as well.
Right. Right. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe the problem is there just doesn't exist legislation to really protect green space, because I do feel alarmed, you know, that this site, it does have this steep grade, and there are, you know, there's like 6 beautiful old lindens. There's a huge like ornamental maple. There's mountain ash, or there's mountain ash. There's a huge ash. There's another big ornamental tree. There's old lilacs, there's old rhododendrons, there's old honeysuckle bushes. It was a beautiful old property, and then it became the Family and Children Services building and owned by the provincial government. So I do feel alarmed. I mean, I know we're at a different, I mean, on the one hand, we're at the beginning of a process. On the other hand, there's really a quite clearly, highly detailed developed plan. But to me, even though I know there was like attempts to try to fit with, like, to have some sensitivity to like local architecture with, you know, I understand you're trying to do that and be respectful of that. I wish that I'm just saying, I wish that the process began with people go to the site, you look at the site, it's steep, there's this many trees, this is the shape. Why don't we only build on the already ruined space? You know, it's already ruined where the parking lot is, right? And in the original, I mean, this is not what's there now because these buildings aren't there now, but this is all green, 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 green. That's all trees. There's a beautiful old stone wall, a quite ancient little stone wall that's kind of wobbly and dangerous now, but it would be nice for that to be preserved. And unfortunately, with this type of proposal, I think this is going to be really just bulldozed and stripped bare. And there's going to be a big 4 or 5 story building. I mean, I know there was an attempt to like, okay, this is a basement level, the mansard roof, you're trying to minimize this big Hulk feeling. But at the end of the day, we've gone from, if you walk along that street, it's just like a green, all of King Street is mostly beautiful, and it's mostly actually residential. And there is the Atlantic Radiator, and there is like the pizza shop, but other than that, it's basically residential along there. And so if you can walk all the way out King Street or the #1 highway, all the way out at least to Coco Pesto, it's a beautiful walk winter or summer because you're protected by large trees. So I wish that was the starting point for the process. And I wish there was kind of like a mom overseeing everything and you know, like saying, here is our overall vision for how we want Windsor to be as a town. Here's what we have, here's what we want to preserve culturally and in terms of green space. And including, and is the Dykeland, is that on provincial land, Dykeland Lodge, like the buildings owned by Dykeland?
Teresa, I'm going to ask you
They
that.
own the land. Okay, so.
I need you to direct your questions through me. Okay.
Sorry.
Just so we stay on
Yeah,
track.
okay.
That's all. Okay.
But no, but I mean, I just wish that instead of like, okay, here's a piece of land, this may happen. Then once Dykeland sells, this may happen. And this, you know, I wish there could be more continuity, but this is what we have to deal with. But my main point is that we have this beautiful historic town with a lot of beautiful historic houses and trees. And I'm not saying don't try to build housing on this provincial land. I think that's a really good idea. But I just think that this is way, way too big for that lot. And even if, and it doesn't look like it to me, is this building, does that only take up 21% of the square footage of that? But this is all hardscape. So that's more, so most of the percentage of this whole lot is really leveled. Like most of it is gone because it's going to be either a building or paved. So there's the 27-foot setback, but that's only like 9. So that's not going to be much of that. And I highly doubt that the green space setback will still be the current stone wall and trees and so on. So I guess what I'm saying is it feels like a developer has an idea for a building they can build. It's being put on a lot that it doesn't really fit. Like I think this would be a good building to build on an already flat place that's already ruined, like an old parking lot or some already ruined land. And that something really like a really wonderful apartment building could be built there, and you could use the green space and maintain that old wall. And I think we really, if we could approach development that way in Windsor in general, that I just think that would be better. And the reason, there are many reasons for it. The shade, the microclimate, controlling water and runoff, you know, and flood control, avoiding the heat sink effect that we get from too much pavement and concrete in cities. It's also a carbon sink. Once the ground is opened, that carbon will be released. The more green space you have, the more it will promote walking. And also when you go to that lot, and if you go up above the road, there's quite a bit of road noise. And because you're on a hill up there, it already acts like an amphitheater, like the road noise comes up just like as if you're in a stadium. But when you have the trees there, it really blocks that. They also are absorbing a lot of airborne pollution. So they're really, that's really valuable. The old stone gates, the old stone wall, those probably have a real heritage value. And just those trees took a long time to grow, and they're really in their full glory. And it would, no matter what landscaping is done afterwards, it's basically that old site's going to be lost. So, that's the main point I want to make. Yeah.
So your comments are appreciated, Teresa. And as
Yeah.
you can appreciate as well, and just for anybody else, that developers and builders of apartment buildings and homes and the like, that we've got the regulations and guidelines that have been established over time, and ours are being reviewed right now, which I'll lead into on this. But there are criteria. And so here, when we look at this is the very first step. So it's where everybody gets the preliminary, the preview. You know, it's just like it used to be the preview before the movies. And this is what's looking at being done with that property. And so this is a first step in being able to provide input, which you've provided to the proponents for the developer here and the planning staff. And I'd encourage you to put your comments in writing. And there are aspects there that can be looked at through the setbacks and the like. But equally, I'll take this opportunity to say that there's another open house tomorrow, a little bit off script here, that is a review of the planning documents. And tomorrow it's in Brooklyn. But those documents are now getting into the stage of getting public input to go to draft documents for feedback from the public. And some of the comments you've made here would be appropriate to put in as part of that review. So I would encourage that too. Okay.
Okay.
I hope that's helpful to you. And I hope that being here has been helpful as well.
Yeah,
But
no, it's very helpful.
really appreciate your comments and your
Yeah.
questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I have two folks in the audience now. I'm going to go to the right first, and then I'll come to the gentleman that's in the center. As with the others, if you can just state your name and we'll take it from there. And if you can direct questions or comments to me, and then I'll
Yep.
route them to where they need to
My
go.
name is Maya. I'm also a resident on King Street, close by to where this property is potentially going to be put in. I just have a question around is a Nova Scotia power study going to be required, or has it already been done and completed? As a resident that's moved into this town in the last couple of years, one of the things that I have noticed, and many others that I've talked to, are that our lights flicker, and that when one major appliance is working and something else is going on, and we are aware that this is not just in our house. We see it in some of the restaurants around town when you're going out to dinner, and you see it in other locations. So do we have the infrastructure for that quantity? And is that study going to be required if it's not already done? We also in Windsor have a lot of power outages. We have a lot of inclement weather. We have a lot of disconnects with that. People already struggle with that as a town and as residents, and this is just going to be expanding that issue. So how do we get ahead of that? How do we support it and make those that already live here feel that they're already in a spot that is working right now before we add additional things? My last two comments are I believe as Windsor in Nova, like here, from observation, and we'd have to look at the statistics, but I do believe we are in a population that is an aging population in this town. I think that that is something that needs to be considered when you're looking at this type of building going in and where it's located, and the accessibility around it. I've spent my entire career working with people with intellectual disabilities, and while that has nothing to do with this specific proposal, I am very aware that aging population and those that are at risk often get put to the wayside, which is the exact opposite of what we should be doing, especially if we have a population that's aging and we don't have a system that's supporting our aging system already. So something to consider. I would appreciate you guys looking into that, and definitely the concern around flickering lights and power outages and what that would look like and how we would move forward from there.
Great. Thank you very much, Maya. Greatly appreciated. I know that from a planning standpoint, and Will, feel free if you wish, but part of the review within the general planning documents is to look at infrastructure. Typically, we're looking at hours. I'm not aware of us having a power issue, but I did see the gentleman in the audience nodding his head up and down as well. So I can't speak for the developer or the builder, but I'm confident they'll be looking at what exists for power supply as part of a new build, and the work that they would be doing. Anything else that you have on that, Will? I don't recall power being part of our checklist.
Excuse me, through the chair to the member of the public, and in all honesty, power hasn't come up as an issue from my side of things. But since you have mentioned this, then all of the comments in this meeting will be recorded, and I will also include it in my staff report, and I can definitely reach out to the relevant department to see if there's any issue regarding power, and so that could be something included in my report in the future.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's definitely needed. So thank you for continuing to look forward on that. And I just recommend that other people, if you live in Windsor, to start looking around as you're kind of navigating around the town and your own homes and your friends' places and apartments and stuff. I don't think we're a one-off. I do think it does happen in other places. And I even mean existing, it happens at the Spitfire when we're eating supper there, for example. Now, I don't know if there's a cause for it or not, but I don't think it's a singular instance, and I think it definitely needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question and for raising the item. Appreciate it. And sir, if you would like to come forward, and as with the others, we'll also look for your name, and then you can feel free to direct a question or comments to me, and I'll direct them accordingly.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tom Samuel. I'm also a resident on King Street, right next to Richard and Justin. I think there's a reason why a lot of people move from bigger cities like Halifax, And one of those reasons is not to stare at tall buildings right out of your window. I'm sure we're all enjoying that in Windsor. So just to echo on what, sorry, Crystal, I think, said, the general appeal and look, it's a concern of mine. I think, you know, like she said, walking down King Street, you get to enjoy that, those many trees and the general look, you know, not, you know, a residential home like a 2-story or a 1-story building. And then all of a sudden you get this pop up of a tall building right in front of you. So the aesthetics is a concern of mine, and I hope you guys consider that. I guess my simple question would be like, for you guys, why a 4-story? Why not a 2-story? It's a 4-story, the cap, or
Over to you, Arnav, if you wish.
Thank you. That's a tough question to answer. So the general the development agreement policy recommends following the general standards for the R4 zone, which has a cap of 3 stories, actually, and we have the sort of additional mansard roof story that has been added onto the building. Part of this is that affordable housing is being provided within the development, and those are subsidized units. So in order for a developer to essentially be able to afford that, you need enough units to also to subsidize the lower rent units. And so you know, it's one additional story within a mansard roof. It's set back from the facade of the building, and a mansard roof, you know, slopes backwards. So the idea is that it's not adding too much to that 3-story recommendation under the R4 zone, but making the entire development and the provision of a quarter of the units being affordable. It's making that possible.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I've seen you guys have done the rendering of the building itself. Would it be possible to do that rendering with the adjacent buildings, just to, you know, give the public a look? Because we're talking about the appeal and this aesthetics of the area. Could you do that?
I think I don't think we're here to be able to ask them to do other building designs. I don't know if that's a fair question, but maybe I misunderstand it. But the rendering that they put out for this property for this design is what is part of the application. Yeah, unless I'm misunderstanding what you're asking.
No. I was just wondering if we could like see the overall look of the area with this building right in the middle. But assuming you guys are not involved in that. Yeah, no.
They may get to that stage as they work their way through the process. At this point in time, I'd leave that for them as part of the process that takes place here before they, if that's helpful.
That's what I got. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. Ma'am in the blue blouse.
Hi, my name is Janet Lowe and I live on King Street, pretty much right next to the building. Just one comment first is we keep saying 4-story building. Technically, it is 5 stories. There's 5 levels of apartments, correct? So when we say 4 stories, I feel like that's belittling how many really apartments are in there, even though we can quote 72 or whatever. But when you get it in your head that it's 4-story or 5-story, it really is 5 stories of apartments. My only comment is in King Street, right in our little area, we have an apartment building going up across the road from us. I don't know how many units are in that. So then this one comes just down the road from us. We have a huge building going up on Wentworth Road. I don't know how many units are in that. Is there the population? Because these are not going to be affordable, low-cost housing. Is the feasibility there that these buildings are all going to be rented? Or are we going to be looking at a building that's only half rented and then just becomes more of a problem because it's not a moneymaker? Is kind of my question.
So
They're the people in Windsor to that are going to be able to afford all these places?
I would suggest, if I could, just in the ease of that question, is that the developers and the investors in properties of this nature are doing their front end research to determine that there's a demand and a need, and therefore, based on that, they're investing substantial amounts of money in new properties to be able to accommodate people within the area. We do know that we have people within our community that are unhoused for various reasons, and we do know that there is demand for increased housing within the area, especially more housing stock, which serves to create increased options for people, which can serve to help keep the rise in prices on rentals and purchases at bay, so that we don't continue to see inflationary prices on rentals and housing that we've seen at the present time. So it's a good thing to have new development coming in, is what my
Oh,
response
100%.
is.
Just my problem is the feasibility of all these places. And are those people who are unhoused now going to benefit from higher end rentals going up? They're not going to be the ones living in this building, maybe the 20%, but not in general.
Right. And so we're going to get a little bit off track here with what's in front of us by way of the intent of the development agreement, but can certainly have that conversation philosophically about how you can contain the increased prices that we're seeing in rentals and the like,
And
but separate from this conversation. Go ahead.
just other comment would be a lower building, like I'm the property that's up and back there that you see the pool. So these 4 stories are going to be looking right down into my backyard, where I've had total privacy my whole 67 years. And other backyards are the same up there. My only comment. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's appreciated, Janet, and thank you for coming forward. I'm going to check again with the audience. Sir, with the blue t-shirt in the back row. Maybe it's purple.
My name is Mike Lyons, and I grew up right next to the property in question. I bought a house on Chester Road that could be affected by the water runoff of that property as proposed. I noticed that there is no green other than some tucked in the back, and thank you for pointing that out earlier, because those trees and the landscaping of that place when the original house was in place and the original owners was there was just fantastic. Now, over the years, because of its use, it got run down and just mowed, but there's a lot of water being sucked in to that ground right now every time it rains. And there's still a lot that comes down the driveways, like little rivers. And it comes down the road, King Street, and then down Chester Road and floods my property. And it comes down across King Street through driveways and through any other egress where there's no ditch that's deep enough to absorb that water. And that footprint is just total. There's no above ground, or let's say multi-level parking to alleviate space for green. There's no, I didn't see any proposal for solar on the roof, but I know that anything you put on that roof is going to create noise. All the HVAC for 72 units is a big noise factor. And everyone in that neighborhood is going to hear that noise now if this proposal goes through. I agree with some of the other comments about the height, just because of the character of the street. Across the street, there's Crosley Court. It's got 3 apartments that have been there for many years, and they've served a good purpose for housing. And something of that footprint, where you've still maintained green space and you're just using a small portion of the land. Now, Pinnacle, can I ask you a question about the developer? Are they local, or where are they based?
They're Nova Scotia based and have been for about 25 years, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that building looks like it would be suitable in a plaza in a big shopping area, or in a city environment, not not a small town. We're house, and then big block. And big blocks, like I say, will create just the wind. If the wind is blowing in one direction, what's going to happen? It's a wall. That wind's got to go somewhere. So it's going to create debris, or it could create mini tornadoes in someone's yard. Or and like I say, the rain runoff, the sewer, all are big concerns for a big place like that. When on Wentworth Road, this would look ideal right next to the one that's being built, as a contrast to the one that's being built. And there's plenty of land out there too. And then are there going to be any condos in this building? You're saying 72 units. Are the top 2 floors going to be $1 million each?
So Arnav,
To
I'll
pay.
direct that over to you.
Thank you. No, it's a rental building entirely, all 72 units. They're about 50% one beds and 50% two beds. And like I said earlier, a quarter of them are affordable units.
Quarter affordable. And then the price goes up as you go up, or? You
That
have a
would,
price.
I don't know if they have a rent schedule yet for
Well, like I
that,
say, the
but
people on the top got the prime view, right? To be able to see the whole town from up there. And not many people could say that in this town, because their houses are surrounded by trees and they like the environment. Anyway, I think I've said enough.
Thank
The
you, Mike.
water runoff is one of the, especially here with a lot of rain we get.
Thank you, Mike, for your questions, your comments. They are appreciated, and thank you for coming forward. Will, do you have anything to say about stormwater relative to the, do you wish to comment on that just as a general comment? I know it's too early to be, that there's been no assessment done on that, but stormwater, I believe, is part of the measurement during development agreements. So
Yes, through you, Chair, to the member of the public, definitely made some good points there. So, stormwater and susceptibility of flooding is one of the criterion that we will look at through this planning process. So we will seek advice on the subject matter experts on this potential issues that the member of the public just mentioned. So it is already included in our policy criteria.
absolutely. Thank you very much, Will. And thanks again, Mike. In the audience, was there another hand coming up that I was picking and choosing? I'm not seeing any more hands here locally. So I'll come to you just one second, Guido. I'm going to check with the last. Let's see, is Krista still with us with a hand up? So Krista, I'm going to go to you next, and then I'll deal with, I'll have to come back to you after, Mike. I'll loop back, okay? Ms. Beeler, if you wish to go ahead, if you're unmuted, go right ahead.
Yeah, so just the other consideration point, and I know this is an early on in this process, but there are many people on that street, but one of the facilities on that street obviously is a long-term care facility. We do approximately 6, well, even more than that, probably 12 ambulance runs a day into our building. So that would be ins and outs. And we have staff that it's critical for them to be able to get into that building at all times without wait. So during a building process on that street, that would be my concern, is making sure that emergency vehicles and staff, and also I guess residents too, on that street are able to be cared for through EMO. So that's just something that I really wanted to mention that I forgot earlier.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much for raising that, Krista. Again, wonderful to have these comments early in the process, that they can be accommodated as best possible throughout the process that may follow. So that's it for, I'm going to go to Mike. Did you want to say one more thing? Yeah, if you want to come forward, then we'll take you. I'll then be following up with to see if there's comments from council and or planning advisory.
I probably threw you off when I said tornadoes, but we're in the summer now, but think of the winter time. What's that building going to do to a windstorm that's blowing snow? That snow is going to go either direction on either side, or it's going to build up in your parking lot. Have you considered a snow removal strategy that's also going to mitigate any pollutants you put on to melt that snow? You're gonna kill grass. You're gonna, just make a mess of things back there. Do you have enough room to pile it? You're gonna pile it in the green spot, in the little parquet? So, we get a lot of snow sometimes. And that has to be considered. And when you're displacing where that snow can fall, then you're causing it to double up somewhere else.
Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate you providing the clarity to your comment. It is most welcome. Thank you. I'm now going to check. There's nobody else online that I'm seeing.
There's just a few questions in the chat.
We'll come back to that. We'll do these folks first, then we'll do chat. So over to council and PAC in any order there. Guido, I see your hand coming. You wish to come forward? And if you would state your name, even though I just did.
Hi, I'm Guido Furlani. I am an appointee of the Planning Advisory Committee, so I am quite in a privileged position because I'm not really council. But I am a citizen with basically this stuff will be on our table in 2 months, probably July, because I love developer, truly do, and we need people to take risks and do things. Even if this is, as we stated 127 times in the very first early stage, it's a good idea to do it right from the beginning. If you got to fly good. And I have 3 ideas. I hope I remember all them because I didn't write down anything. I can just go by, as we say in Italian, by arm, meaning by the seat of my pants. I'm playing by memory. Thank you to Teresa for the eloquent speech. And, I am Italian, so you guys were raised at PBJ. I was raised at BNA, which is BNA, which is Bread and Architecture. And so I appreciated the effort when you mentioned the fact that you took the clockmaker in as a parameter for and I can see, right? I can see the slanted roof, and I can see the 2 windows that look like, in fact, the top of the roof. I always look at the clockmaker and all those great places around with much respect because they speak something like 1800, 1850. Good stuff that didn't get burned in a big fire. I myself own 1850 property in Windsor, not far away from there. So we like this quality. My concern, as I would raise the same thing when he gets on the PAC, on the Planning Advisory Committee, is that really looking like the clockmaker or not? Meaning that, of course, it needs to be a modern building. And one question I would have is that concrete or is that wood? You don't need to answer now. You can answer me after. Because I've seen that big building going up on Wentworth, and I can now see it from my home. And at the beginning, it was looking like 4 stories, and then became 6 because the roof is 2-story. So it's really big, and it's made of wood. Interestingly, I really hope the winds don't blow strong. However, in this case, when I look at that architecturally wise, I consider the white color and I consider all the aspects, and I can see the recalling of the clockmaker, but I mostly see a very modern building. And, it is 5 stories in the end. I don't know if the whole thing should be reconsidered to fit in that space 2 or 3 stories. I'm putting my thought on out loud speakers, okay? As if I'm speaking with myself, but you can hear me. So it's a consideration because I saw it today. The second point is actually, Teresa was wondering that if we got there, actually today, the same people that are here on this side table and there, and one is there, on voluntary time, we all went there and took a look, and the staff. And it was a great exploration. And I could definitely see the big, tall ash, 80 feet tall, that probably took 70 years to grow. Those great trees are all there, and they were looking at us. And probably on this, someone asked for a rendition where we have a comparison of height of this and height of that. probably the tree is up here. Probably up here, taller than all this. So yeah, it's quite an intervention. Let me see if I can remember the other point I had in mind. Yes, the other point is a logistic point. I know that on King Street, we have already approved, I think they are approved, a development of 92 apartments, not far away from there. And right beside that, there is another big development. I think we both approved them. And I don't remember it. It is a big development like this, one from Bryson and the other one nearby. They were having problem with the road. They were so close that they had to, I don't remember geographically how far, but probably 100 meters from there. So the question is, when we think about traffic and ambulances, perfectly pointed out, I didn't imagine 12 ambulances a day to the Dykeland facility. I'm wondering, are we thinking about the compound effect of 3 big development on King Street? Basically, the other 2 development are going to be like this, right? Probably even more apartment. Or are we considering one by one development? Are we considering the compounding effect of 3 big development? And then my other concern, finally, and I leave it as a concern, not that I am pro or against, right, is in this moment, King Street looks like a nice historical place and with a lot of historical items. This thing not masquerade, not masked by old trees in this quantity can be something I totally see in downtown Vancouver, where I lived before 5 years ago. I can see it in Halifax. I can see it in Dartmouth. I don't know if it's right as of now, as is, right, as Vash is. I don't know if I can completely see it fitting right there on King Street in downtown Windsor. That's the end of it. And again, I know that we need places. I know that we need buildings. And my concern for architecture, I give you a final example and then I shut up. My architecture thing is to add insult to injury. I got engaged to a girl for 6 years that was an architect. So every time we were going to visit an Italian town, I was having the full rundown. When we went to Venice, we were crossing the Canal Grande, the Great Canal, right? Spectacular. And she was pointing, see that? Yeah, beautiful. Well, that's been built 20 years ago. And I had to look twice because it was totally modern, but so perfectly mimetized, camouflaged into that it was like, oh God, it's true. That's modern, but you couldn't get it. So what I'm wondering is what else could be done to camouflage it? Because sometimes the eye wants its part. I leave it there. Thank you so much.
Guido, thanks very much for your comments and for coming forward. Really appreciate what you've got to say there. The one thing I will say, just so as not to confuse matters, if I can say, is that the other developments that you're referencing, Guido, they're actually not on King Street. There's a proposed road that is in progress that will intersect with King Street further up the road. I'm really bad with measuring distances, so I'm going to say 1,000. I'm going to say 1,000 yards, but it's not the same street. And so just let me close with that and to say that, as we talked about earlier, Traffic Authority comes in to review each of the development agreements that comes to PLACAC as well as coming through to council. And so they would look at the impacts of traffic in the surrounding area and any impacts that may result with those developments as they come on stream as well. So I just wanted to put clarity on that that's where those projects are, which I'll call the extension of Payzant Drive, for lack of better phrasing now, and the other one coming down out of the crossing. So
thank you, Councillor Ivy. I want to apologize for any imperfection because I've been in PACAC since January, and in police advisory board for 2 years, but I am a Windsorian, 5 years old. So a lot of stuff happened that I wasn't part of anything. And so I like to be precise in things. In this case, I had to go very imprecise just by, take or given. Thank you for.
No, it's okay. Just trying to keep it straight. So anybody from council that wishes to speak or questions or comments? No? John, you're okay? Good. Okay, that being said, seeing no further hands, nothing else online.
Just the questions in the chat
Oh,
box.
Thank you. I wasn't looking to avoid them. I really just lost sight. Do you wish to read them out and see if you can?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll paraphrase a bit here, but this question is from Paul Beasley.
Oh, thank you.
So question about the height of the building being above average. So is there an opportunity to have the front setback moved to a minimum of 35 feet? Just noting that the other high buildings, the Clockmaker Inn, for example, is set back quite a bit in terms of distance from the street.
Thank you, Carrie. Arnav or Ian, do either of you wish to comment on the design components that's raised here relative to the height and or the setback at this point? Or it's early, we know that. Yeah.
I guess I would just something that I mentioned in my presentation as well is that the 27.7 setback that it has right now is based on the average of the neighboring properties, and that's something that's in the municipal planning strategy for Windsor, and that's what that's based on. But we welcome the planning staff's review.
Thank you very much. And Ian, did you wish to?
I can also add to that too, Mr. Chair, is there's some considerations too around the grades of the site.
Yes.
Pushing it further back puts it actually higher up on the hill, as well as closer to the lodge. So there's some balancing in all of that, but it's something we can look at for sure.
Certainly appreciate the insight. Thank you for the comments, gentlemen. Carrie, over to you. Any more?
Yeah, and just one more question that may have been addressed, but I'll ask it anyway. So have the residents of the Dykeland Lodge been considered? It appears their view will be of the parking lot for the development.
Thank you very much, Carrie. And I don't know that they were considered prior to tonight's session. I think through Mr. Murray and through Ms. Beeler that they've been made aware through their comments. And I think the general feeling of this is it's great to have their input so early on in the process. That allows it to be taken into account, through the public information meeting, and then as we work and proceed through to the planning advisory committee, then ultimately to first reading, second hearing, and public hearing. So I think it's all very good that we've had them here. So clearly the signage worked, or they were aware of the development that was about to take place, and ideally that'll all be taken into account. Is that okay with you, gentlemen, Fred? So no further hands, no further lights. I'll just begin with a couple of closing comments here. I want to thank, first of all, everybody for what was a super respectful meeting and questions and answers, and everybody bringing what they had questions and concerns about. Hearing these questions at this early stage is really helpful, to the developers and the owner of the project, and B, to planning staff, and getting that information gathered. It helps very much to have it early on as part of the process, and we'll continue to gather more information, as I said, through the process that was outlined by Will, and I've just kind of summarized in a really tight nutshell there. So comments and questions on this application will be received by Planner Will Hong until noon on June the 18th of 2025. Will's email address, for anybody who didn't catch it earlier, is whong@westhants.ca. Or the telephone number that you can reach him at is 902-798-8391, extension 110. The contact information is also available on the Region's website, which is www.westhants.ca. And with that, again, I thank you all for joining us, and please continue to follow along, especially if you're in the area, and we'll see you.